Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Real 1% podcast. I'm your host, Michael Daly, and today we got another special veteran on the show, as always, female veteran to be exact, my girl, Crystal, aka, if y'all know what that is, you already know. We got the green on and we're repping. If you're a female veteran, would love to have you on the show and share your stories to help change the narrative in the Black plague that faces the whole veteran community, whether it's 22 suicides a day, the homelessness, or you just feel lost and out of place, as we all have once we got out of the military. Most of us, maybe not everybody, but Crystal's a native of Virginia. She's a former freshman varsity letterman. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Track and field star. She then took the dive to go into the Army. She's a retired U.S. Army Medical Service officer and a proudly service-connected disabled veteran. Which, if someone needs help with that, listen to the show and maybe get something on that. She actually transitioned from the Army after the Army was downsizing back in 2016. She's a graduate of St. Augustine's College and the University of North Carolina, Pembroke. She earned a Master's of Arts in Exercise Science, Physical Education, Sports Administration. A proud wife, mother, member of AKA, and she also serves as a senior federal program management analyst. And she's an entrepreneur. Who better to do it than a veteran? Her company's name is Resourcefully Chris. She's a speaker, a coach, and an author of She Needs to Move Something to Live. Great title. And one of her main goals in life now is to empower women to elevate to the next level through her experiences. Crystal, how you living today?
I am great. It's a little bit of a rainy day here outside in the DC area, but I'm great. It's a great opportunity to come on and speak with you and also share from the female veterans perspective. And again, I love the great title, One Journey, how many different areas I've shown up in these small percentages. So it resonates with me.
I appreciate you being here and shouting out the show. And absolutely right. Like, we are the 1%. We're the people that, raised our hand, sacrificed it all, put it on the line, and make it happen. So appreciate you being here and joining the show. So let's talk a little bit about sports and when you're growing up. What made you want to get into track and field?
So initially, I wasn't thinking about any type of organized sports. I had a friend of mine who wanted to go out for the basketball team. And so she asked me to go out for the team. So we practiced a little bit. I learned enough to be dangerous enough to make the team. And then all the other coaches saw that I had some speed and they all wanted me to come out and join their athletic program. The end for me was that my high school head coach was actually my PE teacher when I was in elementary school. So he remembered me from field day when I was beating most of the boys and of course the girls out on the in our dashes and things like that. And so he asked me to come out for track and field. So my plan was to go out just to get in shape and return to basketball. But I went out there, and as you mentioned, I earned my varsity letter as a freshman in my first season outdoor, and we were getting per diem. So I had no desire to return back to basketball. That didn't necessarily make the basketball coach happy, but I was in my happy place.
Are you? Am I frozen right now again?
No.
I'm not. Okay, you are. But okay, let's keep it going. We've been this is like our third time trying. We try to go live and do uncut, but it's bad weather. I don't think they want Crystal Story out there, but we're gonna keep trucking along. So, I mean, how did it feel like going up against the boys in the first place and beating them? That must have made you feel good, honestly.
Yeah, I have fun, and I would have people always want to like everyone always wants to race me, and I still get it today. I mean, I'm on the track at the military installation training, and I have people say, let's race," and I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're not in a position to race me, but okay, let's go at it. I'm out here training, so I know one of my cousins was running against me, and I remember him like grabbing out the shirt to stop me because I was beating him. And he was like, "Never mind, I don't want to race you anymore." So, and my uncle would have me race his friends and things of that nature. So it was fun.
So you pretty much dragging everybody still to this date.
I think I'm making a pretty good amount of noise out there.
Not bad then. I mean, so favorite event? What would you say running track and field in high school? Would you like the most?
I like the 100. That was always what I had fun doing, but it wasn't necessarily the event that I could have been the most competitive in. I was competitive, but I could have been way more competitive in a longer race. But with maturity, you have the things that you go after. This is the fun, shiny object, and you're doing well enough that you're beating people. But some of the other things require you to have a little more work behind it. And so it takes a little bit of the enjoyment out of it. I have individuals tell me that they really enjoy watching me run the 200 and the 300, and they're inspired by it. But I like the 100. I did like the curve in the 200, though. Then everyone would love to say that they like to watch me clean up coming off the curve.
And you said you ran like the team event, right? What's that, the 400?
Yeah, so the 4x100,
4 by
yes. And
1.
so I
Okay.
like the track and field was individual, but also a team.
Yeah, not bad. How'd you guys do? Like, did you guys go to states at all, or how far did you make it?
We did go to states. I went to states in my sprint events, and also I was recognized as honorable mention and on our all metropolitan team. And so that was a big deal because most of the sprinters that were mentioned, most of the sprinters that made the all metropolitan team in the DC metropolitan area, which is now called the DMV or referred to as the DMV, came out of DC or Maryland. So there were very few sprinters that came out of Virginia. So to be brand new to the sport, never having done it before, and being recognized in the honorable mention status as a sprinter was really big.
How'd that make you feel?
It was good. I used to have my picture up in McDonald's, in our local McDonald's. That was there for like years until they renovated, probably until I returned to the area in the Army.
Okay, that's not bad. Yeah, it's always high school sports is you do good in your own little area, but then you, like you said, you guys got like three the tri-state, tri-state, so you're dealing with people from huge cities, and you got like that's like I grew up in Sarasota, Florida, but when people from Sarasota played other teams in Miami or something like that, it was like you're playing like against like grown adults or something. So that's just how it goes in high school. You never know, it's the nature of the beast. But no, I mean, do you think your competitive mindset and just doing track and field helped you progress into the military, and talk a little bit about how you actually got into the Army at first? Because I know you got a full ride and everything like that for school, but walk us through that scenario.
I absolutely do think that my competitive nature and mind did carry me through because when I initially went to school, I did the bare minimum to get by. I really wasn't all that interested. I'm a first generation college student. I'm an only child. And so my parents let me navigate it. My mom was harder on me about schoolwork, and my dad was like, okay, he was much more relaxed about it. But I really got to write my own path. So how much effort I put in overall was really up to me. And so when I realized how well I was doing in track and field and I had the opportunity to get a scholarship, then I started to get more interested in school and really started to do more work. And so my grades improved, and I started to look at going to college. So when I got these scholarship offers and I did accept to go to school in North Carolina, when I first showed up in my first semester, my grades weren't that good. And then I realized that a lot of my teammates had really good GPAs, and I didn't want to be the one to hold us back. And so I'm like, I have to do the work. So I cleaned up my work and moved into the honors dorm. And of course, once you do that, you do not want to be put out of the honors dorm. So I stayed in the honors dorm for my sophomore year until I graduated. And then from there, I liked not having to pay college debt and knew I needed to continue school for what I wanted to do outside of graduating undergrad. And so the military was one of those opportunities that opened that door for me.
Okay, I didn't even know they had honors barracks, but or dorms, but I'm sure they're a lot nicer than the normal ones, right? Like
Yes.
I've only visited some people in college, and it's like, damn, this is how you live in almost the army almost had better barracks than them, and that's saying something, you know. So yeah, I bet you were like, I'm staying around here, and making that happen. What was it like being around so many high performers when you got there? Because you said you're by yourself, you're coming from out of state. Did they accept you with open arms? Was it cool? Because sometimes it's a hit or miss. You talk to some people, and their teammates not really the best teammate in the world. They could be a good athlete, but at the same time, are they welcoming? Are they trying to mentor you? How was your experience when you got to your school in North Carolina?
So as you mentioned, coming from Sarasota, like for me coming from Fairfax County in Northern Virginia, I came from the suburbs. And so, like you said, I was competing in that tri-state area. There were more people with that city background where sports were more ingrained and there were more opportunities to like really work on those skills. So then when I went to college, I went to school at a Division II powerhouse. Mostly everyone on my team came from the Caribbean islands. I was
Oh.
one of very few that came from the United States. And so what the first thing that I was met with was coach said he wasn't recruiting anyone else from Virginia. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm here.
Damn. Like, okay. Did you start beating everybody on your team when you got there as a freshman? How'd that go? Were they like you guys were pretty even, or because you're coming from being the best, you're lettering as a freshman, and then you get to college where it's a whole different playing field. Talk about that. Like, how was it competing against your teammates when you first got there?
So I will say, hindsight is 2020, but as my coach explained it, my summer coach explained it, you're a big fish in a little pond, and then you go and you're, a small fish in a big pond. So I didn't realize until later on, yes, we had great talent on our team. However, several of them were significantly older than I was. And so they were more mature in the sport and everyday life. And so where I'm figuring it out, and I'm coming straight out of high school going into this environment, they've been doing this not only since they were really little, they had several years ahead of me. So Division II sports has a little bit of a difference in their age requirements than Division I level sports.
Oh,
So
okay. So you're gonna be dealing with someone that's 21 years old as a freshman or something like that
yes,
just had more time to develop. And yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
yes,
good point.
yes. So yes, they were fast, and I, as one of my coaches will say, or several of my coaches will say, I held my own, but I wasn't beating them, not during that time. Yeah.
Who'd you look up to when you were coming up through the ranks? Like, who'd you like for track and field?
Of course, everyone loves Gail Devers. Everyone loves Florence Griffith Joyner. Everyone loves Flojo. Everyone loves it's just so many different people that were out there, and everyone enjoyed watching Carl Lewis during that time. But there were a lot of people out there that were really turning at the track during that time. Jackie Joyner Kersey. So I
Yeah,
got to see some of them. I was getting my thoughts together, but Jackie Joyner Kersey, there were so many different athletes out the time at that time that were really, really making a lot of noise out there. So it was really good to see them, and I got to compete and be at some of the meets where some of them were competing. Jackie Joyner Kersey was still competing when I was in college.
that's not bad at all. Did you ever want to take your talents and try to go to the Olympics?
I did. I did want to go to the Olympics. But again, I like competing. I thought that was fun. Training sometimes could be very grueling. And so I didn't want to move up events. Like I had schools offer me full scholarships. And my determining factor was that they wanted me to run the 400-meter dash. And that is a grueling race. And so I was like,
Mm.
yep, not going there. But I know that I could have been way more competitive at that level in the 400-meter than I was in the 100, 200-meter. It's way more saturated.
When you like look back at it now, do you think if you could have done it again, would you maybe take someone up on the offer, or you thought you were good where you like how everything played out?
I mean, I really appreciate the opportunity and how it played out, but with maturity and understanding of what my coach was explaining to me when he's talking about becoming a student of the sport, I would have gone up to the 400, 800, because as they look at it, I could have gone on to the professional level between
Mm.
those two, at least the 800. So I felt like I was shorter and I was way more muscular than a lot of people in that traditional build. And so I saw it as more of a challenge when it came to the practice of it. And I wanted to be able to enjoy some part of it, at least the competition. So I didn't move up.
What was the least favorite thing that you liked about training track and field?
Oh, that is a tough one. There were some there were some really, really challenging days where you just ran so hard. Like as a sprinter, I actually had to run cross country because I was a full track and field scholarship athlete in high school. I mean, in college, I had to run cross country my senior year of college because that was what my coach required. And so as a sprinter, you aren't running much over a mile or two if you can help it. And so to be out there running back to back miles at sub 5:30 pace, and I'm a
Mm.
sprinter, I was like, this is crazy. And then having to run the 3 miles, the 3.1 miles in competition, I was not a fan. But then I joined the army and started running 5Ks and Army 10 miler. So go figure.
That's funny that you said that because the same thing happened in our high school. Like if you played basketball when season was over, you're like pretty much either going to do weights or you're going to go run bleachers or you're going to, they want you to do cross country or they want you to like fill in the blank with something else to just keep your conditioning up. And that's all it is. It's not like they're trying to put you through something the ringer, but at the same time they want you in tip top shape. So I guess that's something common they do everywhere. Our basketball coach used to make us run nonstop, but it was just like, down and back in 8 seconds or suicides. You already know what we had to do in basketball, but it's all to get conditioning because anyone can score a layup, but most people get fatigued faster than others. So it's like Coach Carter. That dude used to make them run all day every day, but them dudes would beat them, just with heart and grit. So it seems like you went through something similar. What about the military? So you started talking to a recruiter when you were at school in North Carolina, and maybe thought it was going to be a good idea for a good fit for you after you got done graduating.
No, what happened with that is I graduated, so I have a
Okay.
degree, and then people are like, "Okay, cool, you got a degree. What have you done? Like, what kind of work have you done?" And I'm like, "Well, I was a full scholarship athlete, and I didn't really have a lot of time to, have internships. And as a first generation college student, I didn't know anything about the need and like the necessity for it. So the importance of it. So I started looking at the military, and I make the joke that my parents are enablers, and I said they would let me stay with them forever and never pay a bill. So I worked at a company for with my aunt for a few months, and I can't tell you what I did with the money. I know that that agency offered me a position when I was a junior in college, and she was like, "No, she's going back to college." But I was not interested in doing that, and I knew that I needed to get out there on my own. So initially, I was looking at the Marines, but as someone without the information, Quantico is just on the road from where I grew up. I couldn't understand why it was going to take me 6 months to a year to go to school, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So I went and saw the Army recruiter, and then yeah, I initially signed up as a supply specialist, and then found out that I did not want to do that, and later rewrote my contract to be a medical specialist or healthcare specialist the way they package it to me, until I found out that they call it a combat medic when I got to training.
How'd you feel when you got there and you heard that?
Woo. So I was like, well, healthcare specialists and medical specialists sound much softer. They don't sound like as G.I. Joe. So that was a big surprise to me to show up to AIT and you're telling me that welcome to the combat medic course. So I was like, no, I don't want to do this at all. And their response to me was like, okay, that's cool. But the fastest way out of here is that you stick, meaning you start the IV and whatever other steps we have that comes around you being a medic related to your EMT basic skill set and like other life-saving skills, or you stay here with us longer. So I quickly said, okay, where do I stick?
Hmm. And that's not even a short, that's a longer AIT, a combat medic. You got to do a lot of training in there, obviously, get you ready to get shipped off and, be the medic of a platoon or work in the hospital and stuff like that. So, how was the training overall? What'd you like most about AIT as a combat medic? And what was the most challenging aspect of it?
I really liked working with others and finding out, like, you getting a little bit of that medical background. I did like that, but I was actually offered right before graduation to continue on to go to the nursing program. But as you
Mm.
said, the program is already long. And so to know that you're in training and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, I'm like, no, I just want to get to my first duty station and start working. So I enjoyed being there. I did really well there. So I ended up being like one of the top females within the company for basic training and my advanced individual training when it came to physical fitness. And so what I enjoyed was that I won a push-up competition. I think I did 78 push-ups in that
Nice.
minute. And I was the only female out there being represented during that time. So that was a cool experience.
You just carrying on the tradition from being young and smoking all the dudes as a adolescent. So you just kept it going. You said you're still doing it now, so that's just who you are. Just dragging everybody out. How'd you do in the 2 mile?
I did pretty well in the 2 mile. I tried to sandbag because I don't like distance. I didn't like distance at the time. And so I was initially running around the 16-minute pace so that I could stay in B group. I felt like B group was very comfortable and easy. So I was like, this is cool. And then we ended up on the track one time, and the company commander flipped the clock on me. So I couldn't see the clock to know what I was running. And by the time he flipped the clock back around, I wasn't pressing, but I came across the line at about 14:15. So he's like, yep, starting tomorrow, you're in A group. And why have you been doing that all along? I'm like, because I don't want to be an A group.
I don't blame you. You getting that's like going back to running cross country again, almost like
Yes.
having flashbacks. So, where'd you go for your first duty station?
So my first duty station was Fort Drum, New York. I was not a fan.
Oh
It's very
God,
cold.
sorry to hear that.
And so I remember my leadership coming in to do a room inspection, and they said, Specialist Hamlin, your room is very nice and neat, but we have a question. And I was like, what's your question? And they said, when do you plan on unpacking? And as I call myself, I was kind of Private Benjamin when I went through training and joined the Army initially. I said, I don't plan on staying very long, First Sergeant. And they kind of looked at me, and the commander says, come see me on Monday morning. And then I went on funeral detail for
How was it being? I mean, I've just heard it's crazy up there with the snow. I know it's obviously freezing cold. Did you ever have to drive like Humvees doing CQ up there?
Yes. So you do have to drive Humvees. You do have to shovel snow. You do get your license, your military driver's license in the dark and all that stuff. If you are running a physical fitness test and it's snowing and you slide and you fail, you fail. Um, you would think something like you can feel like your eyelashes frozen and stuck together. I bought my first car and went up there. I thought something was wrong with my car because there was ice on the inside of my windows. And at the time, long time ago, on CDs, there was ice covering my CDs. And I'm like, this car is broken. I need to take it back. And they're like,
Oh
nope, where
man.
it's from.
Okay, buying that car, I got to ask you this because so many people do it as veterans. Did you get hung up with a high interest rate, like right outside of post, or
You
did you have?
It
Go ahead,
wasn't
go ahead.
outside of post, but I did get a high interest rate before I showed up there. So I actually bought my first car in Virginia, where I'm from, and my first interest rate was 19%.
They killing them on it, man. Y'all, I mean, we got to learn from it. We all did it before. I got lucky. I'm not gonna lie. I got a car from my parents, but I know too many people. It's all around. I mean, they had people in AIT going to buy cars. If I went to Fort Lee, Virginia for AIT, they'd go to Virginia Beach, not even supposed to leave the base, or you got an overnight pass. They're going to buy cars and bringing them back 20% interest, this, that, and like you're stuck with it, right? So like, what would your take be, or what would your word of advice be to any soldiers that may want to join the army or that are in there right now, just reporting to Fort Drum, New York? What would you tell them about buying a
So
car?
yeah, everyone's experience is different. I didn't really understand the whole credit thing, and I didn't really have enough family members around me that could help me with that. So I had to build credit. So that's how my experience went. So I only had my 19% interest rate for 6 months, and
Oh,
I
that's not bad.
refinanced it at 4.5 percent through my credit union. So I
Okay.
really sat down and came up with a plan and learned how to navigate the credit process and build my credit score to over 800. So it was just a different experience. But I do remember having a battle buddy who bought a brand new neon at the time, and her car didn't have a horn, and she had 23 or 26% interest rate at Fort Drum. Yeah,
Oh,
so we went out, she went to go honk the horn. We were like, something's wrong with it. She took it in, and they're like, oh, we have to put a horn in it.
oh God, and
So
that's gonna be another 5% interest. No, that's
right. So
crazy.
I definitely say seek out the opportunities for those around you that are credit savvy, and check with your credit unions, especially like the ones that support veterans, and see what the better rates are, because I found that the credit unions typically have better rates than your banks. And I go into the car dealership with having my information at hand. You can try to beat it if you want to. So if it works out, great. But if nothing else, I already walk in knowing what I have. But you kind of hold your cards close to you so that you don't share all of that when you get in there.
No, that's great information, and yeah, it's a learning curve for sure. And like you said, what made you like refinance? So how did you start like looking at it? Did you get the paperwork and say, well, that's a little bit higher? Did someone sit down with you? And what made you turn the corner on that and just get to be able to refinance and everything like that?
So I remember I used to think 700 credit scores were high. And so ultimately I was like, well, I want to work to get a 700 credit score. And so I had to look at things to build my credit. And so I started looking at opportunities for me to contact the creditors and clean up things that I understand. My first credit card I was given as a college student, $1,000 credit card, and all you had to write down was student. So I thought that whenever you pay it, you pay it. I didn't realize that it will go on your credit and cause you to have a problem. So having no credit or bad credit is all the same.
Right.
So I really sat down and started writing letters and contacting the agencies and explaining my understanding of the situation, and then took advantages to build credit with collateral, so where I was able to refinance it. So when I paid my car off much quicker, and they were like, "Oh, let me tell you what the new payment is." I'm like, "Oh, it's easy. It's 3 times lower than what I've been paying." So
I bet you're happy as heck when you heard that. You're like, are you for real? Like this
yeah,
for real?
yeah. So just paying stuff on time, and also taking advantage of checking out your credit unions, being patient and doing your research to see what's out there as well. It will help you get in the best position. But definitely don't go out here and buy all this big, crazy, flashy, expensive stuff and you can't afford to do the maintenance on it, or even put gas in it, because I've seen that as well.
Seriously, gas is up now, and don't get hung up with lifestyle inflation. You're right. What
Absolutely.
what was like the what's give me a crazy story from Fort Drum, and then let me know what happened after you left that base.
Oh, crazy story from Fort Drum. Man, there's so many. I there are, but I will say that, well, when I was on funeral detail, I do remember, people will say that's kind of a sad thing to be on, but I actually enjoyed my time being on funeral detail because I actually folded the flag, presented the flags to family members, and also helped to usher in the person to their final resting place. And so I found that to be a great honor. But I remember being at one of the funerals and someone's cell phone rung or something. But one of the little girls said, am I going to get a new grandpa? And so she asked in the middle of the service when we were graveside. And so her grandmother, her mom or someone kind of giggles and was like, oh, okay, let me know if that works out for you. But just as they, just it was a nice, soft, light moment in that instance. But I really did enjoy it. And the other thing is I got to do a funeral for a Tuskegee Airman. So that was really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Did you get to see Niagara Falls when you were up there?
I did not see Niagara Falls, but I did go to Canada and they weren't fans of service members. So it was better for
Oh,
you to show your civilian ID than it was for you to show your military ID because they thought you can go across the border and drink at an age where you could not drink and gamble in the States. And so they didn't really like to see us come. So they didn't really have the most personable bedside manner. So showing your civilian ID was a better bet than showing your military ID.
hey, y'all might have just learned a little hack. If you station at Fort Drum, give them the Florida driver's license instead of the
Yes.
DOD ID card, the cat
And don't
card.
take any military gear across the border. Like make sure your car is free from all of that.
That's crazy. I never heard that one before. That's cool. So, what'd you do after you left Fort Drum? Did you re-enlist? Did you go to another duty station? What did it look like for you?
So I only stayed at Fort Drum a little over a year because I knew that that was not where I wanted to be. And so I volunteered for recruiting and I became a corporal recruiter. So I got a lateral promotion from specialist to corporal within my first 2 years in the Army. So I was a recruiter before I was even in the Army 2 years.
How was that for you?
I liked recruiting. It gave me more of a civilian kind of a feel because I had more freedom, even so young in my early in my career. But it gave me the opportunity to learn some additional skills, speaking and interacting with others. Research was a really big skill that I learned from recruiting, and I use into this day, which helped me to get my 100% total and permanent disability on my first time go, which
Let's
also
go.
helped me to get into the federal government at the highest grade possible and continue to navigate from there. So that skill has been second to none, and I really appreciate that. So while I was in recruiting, I was fast tracking. I made staff sergeant in 4.5 years. And then I recruited myself to commission. So that's how I commissioned. I was told someone mentioned that I was a great recruiter and recommended I go to medical recruiting. I still don't know who this person is to this day. I went over to medical recruiting and I said, I qualify for this. I did my entire packet and then I gave it to my coworker who had this mission and said, okay, you sign the packet and you get station credit, you get station credit, you get individual credit, and I get to commission. So that's how I commissioned. So it was a great opportunity for me.
I've never heard a story like this before, but it's all great. Where'd you go to be a recruiter at? Did you go home? Did you get needs of the army? Where'd you do your time at for that?
They actually offered me to go to the recruiting station that I was recruited out of, but I figured that I shouldn't go that close to home because I want to go to work and do what I'm not be distracted by friends and associates in the area. So I took a job in Maryland. So
Okay.
initially I went to Maryland, but I would commute that first year and then I finally moved to Maryland. But I stayed in recruiting. I like I said, I made 5 and 6 out there and then I commissioned and then we went to Germany.
Okay. What part of Germany did you go to?
Mannheim.
Okay, cool. I was in Vilsec. I was in the on the other side. Let's Germany was cool. How'd you like it over there?
I love Germany. Initially, they wanted to send us to Gießen. So, I mean,
Okay.
to Baumholder. So, Grafenwehr, excuse me, Grafenwehr.
Graph. Okay, yeah, that would have been
Yes,
over by me. Yeah.
yes, yes. So when you said yes, so they wanted to send us to Grafenwehr. We asked some friends, and they're like, "Yeah, if you can go somewhere else, I say go
Go.
somewhere
You
else."
go somewhere else. Yeah.
So my husband called and they were like, yeah, you guys can go to Mannheim. And they're like, he's like, we want to go to Mannheim. They're like, yeah, you want to go to Mannheim. So I went there initially. I was assigned to an MP unit as a staff sergeant E6. And then right when I got finished with the 1 month in processing, we got the notification that I was selected to commission. So I was
Oh,
out of there in a couple months and I commissioned and came back as the XO of the clinic.
oh wow, that all happened fast. And you probably got your household goods unpacked, and then they said, "Hey, time to go pack up your stuff again and go to where'd you have to go for your schooling?
So
OCS."
back to San Antonio. So I did OBC,
Okay.
I did direct commission,
Okay.
and You're right. They were I had actually conflicting reservations inside of my system. They were scheduling me for BNOC for E6 NCO school and OBC at the same time. And I'm like, I'm not going to BNOC because I'm getting ready to commission. So it was a conflict. Like, and I said, if I was single, it would have been a great opportunity to learn that additional skill, more at that level. And also who's going to turn away the additional per TDY per diem and all that stuff.
Oh
But
yeah.
having a family, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that to them. So I went to the Office of Basic course and then came back from San Antonio and went to the Mannheim Health Clinic as the XO.
Okay. How was the officer basic course for you when you went and did that?
I mean, after coming off being a medic, I thought it was pretty easy. So I didn't volunteer for much stuff because I knew there were other people that didn't have the experience. I think that some of the leaders just thought maybe, oh, well, she probably can't do X, Y, and Z. And so when they told me to go into certain positions, they're like, oh, you did really good. I didn't know that. And I'm like, yeah, I was a medic staff sergeant before I ever commissioned. They're like, oh, okay. I'm like, I didn't need to wear that on my sleeve.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's funny. They're trying to judge a book by its cover when
Mhm.
all reality you already had all the training and everything. So how was it coming back to the same unit as like from coming from an NCO to the being the XO? How was that? No, no problem. Everything was good.
So I went from the MP unit to the hospital. So
Okay.
it was funny because I had some senior leaders that I actually knew from when I was enlisted, and then they tried to avoid me. So I actually saw them out and about, and to avoid saluting, they went the other way. I'm like, okay, cool. I wasn't looking for a salute anyway. Like,
Oh
go ahead.
gosh.
But other than that, it was a great experience and opportunity. So everyone that knew me before, outside of those people, were excited, and I actually mentored several other individuals to obtaining their commission and also going warrant.
Okay. So when you got back, you got your XO, you're doing your thing as an officer. Did you think you're going to stay in the military long term at this point?
Yeah, at that point, I pretty much figured, okay, I'm going to retire. I've been around for a while. I returned to the States. We went to North Carolina to Fort Bragg. I was airborne qualified. I came back to the hospital in Virginia and completed combatives level 1 training. I was selected to go to long term health education and training. So I would have obtained another master's degree in a fully civilian setting, but still getting my full time benefits, my full active duty pay, and getting
Okay.
looked at for my promotion to the next grade, and then the downsizing.
Were you dual military with your husband?
Yes.
How is that?
It was good, except when we came from Germany, he was selected to go to Iraq and I was selected to go to Afghanistan.
Oh, geez. Come on, they
And we
couldn't
had a
bunk out. They
kindergarten.
couldn't get y'all bunked up. I mean, make it like a little dual deployment. Go over there with your spouse. I mean, that must have sucked then, honestly. Because I mean, honestly, having a family in the military is it's pros and cons, like right, like everything else. When you get time off, you're on the 4 days. You're living life to the fullest. But if you got one going to Iraq, one going to Afghanistan, that's kind of tough. Did you have kids at the time or not yet?
Yeah, so our son was starting a Spanish immersion program, a fully 100% Spanish immersion program in kindergarten. So
Oh
neither
well.
one of our parents had the ability to like help him get through that. And then, like I said, we were just returning from a 3-year tour in Germany. So I was like, you could have got one of us while we were there. Now we're back in the States and you're planning to send both of us. And as you said, to 2 different countries. So when being the person I am, I spoke up and I said, I have no problem with going, but would you at least allow my husband to come back and then I'll trade out with someone else? And so my peers were like, we don't need you to do that. Don't worry about it. We have it. And so when it was time for us to go and brief the unit on who was staying back on rear detachment, then I briefed myself.
There you go. At least you spoke up. I mean,
Yes.
sometimes like closed mouth don't get fed, right? You gotta speak up and make your point known, in a tactful manner. But you did that and you made it happen, which is good. When you're at this point, how many years did you have in the army altogether?
So I think I was probably around, we were in Bragg 2009, 2010. So I was probably in around 8 or 9 years at that time.
Okay. How was the airborne for you?
Okay, so everyone says airborne school is fun. And I did not find the school itself fun. One of the moments that I really, really enjoyed, and I will say that it feels like nothing else I've ever experienced before, is the few moments when you go out into the air, just that peace that you feel, the euphoria, that is like the coolest feeling. And so to be out in the sky and just everything is peaceful, that's cool. Hitting the ground and everything leading up to it, no thanks.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Tower Week, PLFs. We had one of my NCOs go to airborne school, and then we deployed to Iraq. and he used to just make us do PLFs all day. I'm like, oh my god, dude. Oh my gosh. But yeah, you gotta love it. I mean, and I'm 200 plus pounds. It's you don't feel good when you hit the ground, all that weight coming down. So I mean, I don't know, but at least you did it. You know, how did you hurt your knees? Did any of that stuff happen? Because Fort Bragg is like nonstop. You guys just jumping nonstop.
So I ended up going over to the old COSCOM side. So the 82nd Sustainment Brigade. I wasn't on the airborne side, so I didn't have to jump. I could
Okay.
volunteer to do it if I wanted to, but my branch manager really didn't understand it, so she made it a mandate for me to go to airborne school, but I didn't go into an airborne slot or airborne assignment. So but we were like, fine, we're going to go to Bragg and do this. So I remember that the distance at Bragg is much shorter than the distance when you're in training. And I do remember that the wind shifted on me one time when I was jumping in training, and I got like that punch
Hmm.
in my glutes, like that Charlie horse feeling. And I was like, okay, that was one feeling that I don't need to feel again. And so I appreciate the opportunity not to push that. But as you said, being heavier and coming down, I remember one of my first jumps, I looked down and I was like standing on top of someone's parachute. And I was like, oh shoot, I
Oh.
was still in the air. So I was like, slip away. But yeah, I could feel my boots touching the top of their chute.
Oh man. Good times though. So from there, what happened after Fort Bragg? Did you just have to deploy again, or lead us up to the time where pretty much you were the military was downsizing? Was that a couple of years away still, or was that kind of
Yeah. So I volunteered to go to Korea, and I went to Korea and I was a patient administration officer there. I was in Seoul, so I was in Yongsan.
okay?
And like most people, they feel like when you go to Korea or somewhere else that you'll automatically go back to Bragg. That wasn't my story. When I commissioned, they tried to send me to Fort Riley, Kansas or Fort Drum, New York.
Oh
And
gosh.
when I returned from Korea, they tried to send me to Fort Riley, Kansas or Fort Drum, New York.
Oh man.
So I was like, I cannot get away from this. So the other offer was to come to the National Capital Region, so the DC area, which is home for me. So I was like, well, it's a no-brainer. There's way more to do there. And I'm home and familiar with the area. So I came back to this area, but I didn't know that I would be being selected for downsizing within that short period of time. So I ended up being the chief of military personnel at the hospital here, and then going over to the Warrior Transition Command after working at the Warrior Transition Company and Battalion in North Carolina. And then I was selected for that fully funded master's program. And
Hmm.
with the exact same packet, I was selected for separation.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, what was going through your mind when you heard all this? Because you're literally doing all this stuff for the army, for the organization, for the greater good. You're here, you're there, you're jumping, you're flying, you're in Korea, you're at drum shoveling snow. Like, I mean, what was going through your mind when you heard that?
It was pretty crazy because I knew that, as they called, I was a PT student, so my PT scores were always over 300. I was doing all these things and all these variety assignments and duties like people were saying you should do. I was fast tracking, so it was time for me to get looked at for major. So I got looked at for major. I got selected for long-term health education and training, and selected for separation, all within 6 months of each other, with the same exact packet.
That's wild. That's crazy. So what was like the how many years did you have in at that point? Because obviously, I mean, I guess it's a two-part question. Did you ever think before this happened, like what you were gonna do after the military, or was that kind of not even in the on the horizon yet? And then what did you start thinking about once they told you that news?
So my plan was always to go back and get my doctorate degree because I wanted to be a physical therapist, but it's
Okay.
very challenging to do that and juggle a full-time job. You really need to be a full-time student for that. So that was my ultimate plan after retirement. The other thing is I had made some financial decisions to do some renovations at my home in the Fort Belvoir area because I knew I had more time left and at least another promotion or two.
Okay.
That when I found out that I was being separated in less than a year, really switched a whole lot of things around for me. So it was very disheartening, especially knowing that some of the service members that also commissioned after me had some UCMJ action that took place when they were senior leaders to me who stayed in and got promoted.
That's crazy. What was your plan of attack once like there was no rebuttal, there was no like reversing this. It was pretty much they said this is what's going to happen, and you had to act on it. How much time did you have to act, and what were you doing to make the best out of it?
So it was less than a year. And thankfully, I had enough time that I made the 15-year requirement. So if you made it to 15 years, you could retire under terror, the temporary early retirement. So fortunate enough for me, that worked out. Unfortunate for some of my peers, they were selected for separation and didn't have that 15 years. And so they either had to go into the reserves or National Guard or walk away with nothing. So you either walk away with the severance package, and but then if you wanted to claim VA disability, you had to pay it back. But
Oh wow.
you go into the National Guard or the reserves, and you still don't get that severance package. So it was walk away with the severance package and possibly have to pay it back or lose all the time that you had. So there were a lot of people that faced a lot of challenges, and the response from them was some good officers will be selected. So there was nothing, you would have to like know the answers to the test in order for you to rebut it. So that made it a challenge.
Did you have anyone around you that could sort of mentor you from leaving the military? Because we all know that most people that are leaving the military, you're on like a solo mission unless you put yourself around people that have already done it or are doing it at the same time. Everyone else is worried about going to formation and PT the next day. So, what did that look like for you? Because you said you did get a first time go at 100% permanent total, and congratulations to you for doing that, because that's a major major life changing event in a positive way, not only for you but for your family as well. So what were the answers to the test in your case?
So yes, it was a challenge because I did not have anyone else around me, and unfortunately, at that time, my 11-year-old cousin, who I caught like consider my nephew because I'm an only child, also died by suicide in that
Sorry.
same time frame. Yeah, so it was a lot going on, and no, there was no one to help me. And I remember the therapist telling me, who's supposed to be supporting our military force, saying, "Oh, the Army's coddled you because your peers have been fired on day one showing up to something." I said, well, that's not how this works. We are always taught that if we're moving along and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing to progress, we can stay in and make a 20-year career out of it when that
Right.
was still in place. I said, so this is very much the opposite of what we were always told. So it does pull the rug out from under you. So needless to say, I put in a complaint from her because I said, I feel concerned about some of our more junior service members that may come in here and have challenges and they're not able to advocate for themselves and don't know how to do so. So if this is the guys I'm getting as someone in a more senior position, I can't imagine what it's like for them. So
Jeez.
navigating that whole process. The funny thing is you don't qualify for unemployment because they say you're retiring.
Wow.
And
Wow,
so
you're getting forced out essentially, and you don't.
yes,
Yeah, that's crazy.
yes. So, and then they write down that you're volunteer, like it's a voluntary retirement. So it's very interesting, the whole choice of words thing that go along with it. But I was essentially living off credit cards to start off with because I transitioned right as we were going into the winter, and you can't use your GI Bill because schools are on break.
Right.
And they don't give you your check as soon as you separate because they have to do an audit to make sure you don't owe anything. So it'll be a few months before that. And as we know, claiming your VA disability, you don't get that right away either. Some people it can be months and some it can be years. So thankfully for me, it was a few months down the road, but I had the background experience of working in the warrior transition units at various levels. And so I learned more things that I would have overlooked. But as I started standard service members with this. So I was very intentional about making sure to see my providers and capture what was going on with me so that it made it much cleaner for me to be able to file the claims for myself, but also having that information to help guide others through the process, even without medical documentation.
Well, that just goes to show what type of leader you are. So I'm glad that you did that and you paid it forward and to the troops below you, because a lot of people get out lost. I mean, I got out. I had a VA appointment. I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't even go to it, and it took me. I got out with 0%. I blame nobody but myself, but it took me 5 years, and I'm with you, 100% permanent total, and not ashamed to say it. And no one else should be ashamed to get it,
No,
go after what they deserve, because you're leaving a lot of stuff on the table, not only for yourself but your family, and it could really change. It could really make or break, life. I mean, you can get out of the military and get several $1,000s a month, or if you don't have that, you have to go to work. And what if you only make 12, $13 an hour? I mean, there's so many things that could spout from not just taking care of what's yours. So good for you for doing that. And what would you tell people that are going to get out of the military, or even if they're already out, but really the people that are still in the service to, essentially obviously be proactive. But coming from a medical expert as yourself, Crystal, what would you tell service members, no matter what branch of service, that way they can maximize their full potential and leave in the military and get what they deserve?
Our day is coming. Everyone's day for separation is coming. So making sure that you are taking care of yourself, because people will forget about you as quickly as you were there. So
Yeah.
thinking that you're pushing off your appointments and not taking care of things because someone's going to commend you for it or think so much of it. I remember giving up so much time. And then the one time I asked for leave, it was like I created the greatest offense. And that's after covering two companies at a time and being the chief of military personnel. So you're going to give more and they're going to want more. You need to take care of yourself. So making sure that anything that's bothering you, that you go see the appropriate medical staff, whether it's the dentist, your primary care provider, your mental health specialist, and not being ashamed to have yourself evaluated. And if what they're doing is not working, continue to show up and have them go through the process to see what else is out there. Don't just stop going like most of us do because we're like, it's not helping anyway. Show up and make sure that it's documented. So that's a big takeaway that I can say is very helpful to this process. And also taking advantage of the resources that are there, but also building upon them yourselves, because there are a lot of things out there that the military is offering. They rush you through it. You're continuing to work through, you may be still working or just so focused on separating, but you need to know that there are some of us out here that really have successfully managed this transition process, and we became the person that we needed during that time so that we can help others get through the process. And so that's what I did. And I know there's others like me out there, but take advantage of what's there for you and don't try to do it all on your own if you don't have to.
Absolutely. Because that year that you had, or a little bit less than a year, I'm sure it flew by. I had 11 months when I left Germany and went to Carson, and I had surgeries, and you got this, and you got permit, you got TDY, and man, 11 months goes by like 5 weeks. It's not that long. And then like you were a upper echelon officer, so they had you covering down and doing this. When did you have time to cover down for yourself? When did you have time to take care of yourself? They want to, most people, they're just going to run you to the ground until the time's up. Now, if you have a good leader and a great leader on your corner, they say, hey, go take care of yourself, Crystal. Hey, go take care of yourself, Sergeant, whatever the case may be. But more times than none, I was going to the field out until the last 30 days. I was in the military. They don't care. They just don't care. But did your husband stay in the military? I was curious to ask you about that. Or was he getting the same boot that you got, or how'd that go?
So he retired. He actually did over 20 years. And so
Okay.
he retired. And he was also able to obtain his 100% total and permanent. And so our son goes to school and the state covers his tuition and fees. So like you said, you're leaving things on the table that can help you and change the dynamics of your family. The
That's
same
it.
thing. Once I, just like you said, how did it feel to know that I've done all of these things and the Army said it's time to go? Yeah, at that point, I really started to focus on what I needed to do for myself and my family, and I wasn't giving anymore. I wasn't going to
Yeah.
continue to sacrifice anything further. It wasn't going to change anything anyway, and so I needed to, at that time, be focused on my transition. And so that's what I did. I made the time. I volunteered. Well, I found out about other programs out there and took advantage of a fellowship opportunity. And so a good portion of my last several months was in a fellowship.
Not bad. How'd you find out about that?
There was through the transition office. So doing some research and seeing what was being offered out there. Then I started to like pull back the thread. Like I said, learning that skill of research. Then I was able to find out an opportunity out there. And I did a fellowship with one of the local, well, not local, one of the big companies out there. And they looked at me for recruiting. However, there was a 5-step interview process, a 5-round interview process once it was complete. And I was like, you all aren't paying that way. And I'm not interested in doing all that after you've received so much assistance from me as a service member, as you're offering this program for free. And now, or the government's footing that bill. And now you're saying I have to go through 5 rounds of interviews to be considered for this position. So no, thank you.
No, that's wild. But I mean, you probably gained some good insight from it, and added some stuff to your toolbox, which is good. How did you get into the entrepreneurship? How did you get into speaking in your company, and even the federal program management analyst? Is that with the government? I'd like to hear some stuff on that if you don't mind.
Yes. So one of the things is, like we were talking, becoming the person that I needed during that time. And so I've been helping veterans and non-veterans as well, even our private sector personnel, with getting into the federal government for those that want to get employed with the government, promotions, change of career fields, and also our veterans with improving their physical fitness and health and obtaining a veteran's disability compensation. So I've been doing it for free for a long time.
Mm.
And it just got to be a lot, that managing the number of personnel that were coming in for assistance and working a full-time job. And like you said, being a mother and a wife during this time frame. So when I saw the opportunity for me to get into the coaching and consulting space, I said, what better way to share my transition story with others and let them know that there's a way that you can get on the other side of it. And there's someone out here that can help you, because I know what it was like to go through the process. And so there are absolutely some opportunities within that transition program that need to be filled. And so I am making sure to share the information with federal veterans and also the private sector to help get more into those spaces, because it is a need for all of us to fill those openings within the government, as well as get connected to your veterans resources and benefits.
How could someone get connected with you if they would like to team up with you and try to get on with the government or just try to better themselves in any of those areas that you just mentioned?
Okay. So I am on all social media platforms as Crystal She Speaks, and they can reach me there, and I will set up an opportunity to book a free discovery call for us to talk about their strategy to get connected with the federal government, if that's the door they're looking to get into, and or their veterans resources that are out there, and also just knowing how I navigated the space. So as far as being a federal employee, I remember people saying that, oh, you were this rank when you were in the military, so these are the levels that you can apply for. That can be further from the truth. It's absolutely
Mm.
about the work experience that you bring to the table and how you present yourself and package yourself. So it is definitely a strategy, and making sure you're getting the most out of it. And some of the other people that are telling you that don't even know how to navigate it themselves.
Yeah, there's a lot of fake gurus out there, that's for sure.
Yes.
You could never lie about that. What was it like doing your first speaking event? How was that for you?
So my first speaking event, I will say, I used to be an Army recruiter, so I had to go and speak at the colleges and university, and I used to find that it was nerve wracking to me, but I would always get so much feedback. People would ask me to narrate ceremonies. They would also ask me to come and speak and present information. So I'm like, there's something to this. So I said, why not do it for myself and share my individual story as a service member, as a first generation college student, and how I got to where I am today, and help others be inspired and connected to what they need to get there as well.
And then you told them to come out and meet them on the track, and if you beat them, they got to sign up, right?
My family makes a joke for me not to take anybody. They said, don't let her take you in the basement. And I was like, why do y'all tell people that? And they're like, well, that's where all her workout stuff is. And I'm like, no, I push you to your level, not mine.
Right. Yeah. No, that's cool. What's one thing you miss about the army?
You mentioned those 4-day weekends. I mean, that was big.
For real.
And then working in a environment where I support the federal government and the Department of Defense, you still see the uniformed service members that are off. So you're like, man, but you can put in leave, you can put in your vacation time, but it was different to get it for free, because we're on the clock 24 hours a day.
For real, the 4 days are definitely missed. What's one thing you like about working with the government?
Oh yeah, and tax-free money. So, or the minimized
Mm.
taxes was helpful. As far as the government, I appreciate the opportunity to have the different categories of leave, because I know that's not always other people's experience. They get one lump sum of leave. So we get our federal holidays, we also get our sick leave, you get your annual leave, and as a part of your performance, they can put you in for additional time off awards to cover the time that the work that you performed over the year, so they can recognize you with additional time off. So those are some things that I like. And of course, as always, having the ability to still support the mission, but having the freedom and the flexibility to be able to stand up for myself as a private employee, as a civilian employee and not in uniform, and say, yep, my 8-hour day ends and I can choose to go beyond it or not.
Yeah, that probably feels good not having phones ring at all hours of the night, and having to take that call, whether it was at Warrior Transition Battalion or being the XO or running the clinic. You can't let those those phone calls go unanswered. But if someone hits you up, I mean, at 2 o'clock in the morning about work, it might be a different story when you just got to go do what you got to do and get out of there. So I think I like doing that too as a contractor. You don't have to go to formation. You don't have to, do this and do that, but you're still doing a good job. You still get paid handsomely, and you still make the mission happen, which is similar to the military. So that's cool. What about doing your book? She needs to move something to live. Where can you find that? And what prompted you to write a book in the first place?
So my book, She Needs to Move Something to Live, is here. And you can find it on Amazon.com. What prompted me to write it is that I get a lot of messages, whether they're text messages, people seeing my fitness journey and knowing that this is something that I do and wanting to share the information because I get a lot of inbox messages asking me questions. And so it shares some tips on how I use my fitness and nutrition to get where I am, how it's impacted several areas of my life. So without my journey with fitness, then I wouldn't have gone into the military, which also wouldn't it would have impacted my civilian, my career choices, and ultimately my finances. So they've all been connected for me. That's a driving force for me, and it's given me the discipline. And like you said, it gave me the discipline as well as that courage and confidence to get out there and do some different things that I may not have otherwise gone out there to do. So that inspired me to share it through a book. And I do have a second book coming out. I am doing pre-sales. It is Your Six-Figure Federal Career, Your Dream Job. And so that's sharing some tips and tricks as well and how to improve your chances of getting employed and promoted.
Did you ever think you were going to be an author?
I didn't. I heard people say to me, there's a book in me, and they've been saying it for years. And I just kind of wrote it off because we get sometimes wrapped up in we're just because we are able to do it. We're like, well, we did it. So you maybe give someone else more credit than you give yourself. And so when I realized that I do have a short story to tell and others are asking me about it and I had the opportunity to write it, then I was like, absolutely. So I wrote it this last year, we're 2024. So 2023, I released this book.
Okay, cool. Appreciate you sharing that. And one more thing, I got a couple more questions, but I was going to ask you one more serious one. What's next for you? I know you said that one of your goals is to empower women to elevate to their next level, to their full potential. What else besides that do you have on your agenda?
So continuing in that coaching and consulting space and building that out so that I can help more, so that I have more of a reach on a larger platform to share the opportunity for others to continue to grow to their next level in their careers, in their personal lives, and also in their making sure they're not leaving their veterans resources on the table and not understanding that they're listening to someone else telling you what you qualify for and what you don't qualify for. So continuing to build out that environment and sharing my impactful story and message with others to keep bringing them along, that's what's next for me.
Okay. All right. Appreciate you sharing all that. And now it's been awesome to have you on, Crystal. I hope you had fun. You've done a lot of things. I'm definitely proud and happy for you, even though we just met. Like, it seems like you're trying to be the best version of yourself, which I always like to say and try to do for myself. And that's no easy task to get up every day and try to do better than you did the day before. But it seems like you're doing it. You're a wife, you're a mom, you're doing your thing, you're helping people. So continue to do it. And I look forward to growing our relationship and hearing from you and seeing you do big things and hopefully get on a stage next to you someday and tell my story and just change the narrative on the veterans or even just in the world, promote more positivity. Become great. We all have greatness within us. As Les Brown says, it's just up to us to harvest it. So I really appreciate you coming on here, being vulnerable, sharing your expertise, your knowledge, your wisdom with us, and hopefully guiding people into a better life. So I want to open it up to you real quick, and if we had anything left out, go ahead and lay it out to them, give them a couple more golden tips. But I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story.
Well, I thank you again, Michael, for bringing me on the show. I thank you also for wearing your green today. So I
Got
appreciate
you.
that. Thank you so much for your support in that. And like you said, it is important for other female veterans to get out there and share their stories because, as you know, people still don't believe we're veterans. And so people are minding our business when we're parking in certain parking spaces, telling us that it's for veterans and we shouldn't park there, or telling us to thank our spouses for their service.
Wow.
So
Hey, check the tag, man. Give them to show them the ID, but that's a shame. But yeah, I guess that is probably too a negative stigma. So female veterans, come on! I love having y'all on. You guys are always doing high. Jenna, Valerie, we got Crystal, we got all these, Megan coming on. Come on out, share your story. There's so many other women waiting for to hear it, and you guys have done just as much as a man. So let's get it.
Yes, because it's no respect of person in the military. So that's why we use female and male, because we all have work to do. But yep, I'm continuing to work on my education and going to the next level there. And I'm excited to bring others along to the journey. And I'm looking forward to continue to grow our relationship. And it's been an excellent opportunity. So thank you again.
No problem. I appreciate you. And if you guys listen to this long, I challenge you guys to, if you're a veteran or in the military yourself, come on and share your story. Come on and tell someone about this podcast. That way we can continue to promote positivity in the world. We can change the narrative. Everyone's voice matters. Everyone's stories matter. It doesn't matter if you didn't deploy. Some people say, I didn't deploy, so I don't want to talk. Well, it doesn't matter, man. I'd rather say I didn't deploy. You deployed all these times. It's not like the best thing ever happens over there, guys. But everyone's story matters. Try to keep doing the best you can. If you need help, you can reach out to me at thereal1%1@gmail.com. And I'd be happy to help you in any way I can. Crystal shared her social media with you, her book. She's doing big things. So I really appreciate you guys listening to this far. And I hope you all have a blessed rest of your day. So thank you so much for listening. Take care.